Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about something that, you probably think is pretty straightforward: image alt text. But here's the thing. In this new AI-powered world we're living in, the old rules, they just don't cut it anymore. We're about to break down a totally new framework that honestly changes the whole game. So let's get right into it. All right, so let's just start with this one big question. When you upload an image to your website, what is it actually saying to the internet? And maybe more importantly, who is it saying it to? Now, you might think, oh, that's easy, but trust me, it's not. As we're going to see, our images are now in a conversation with an audience that's way more complex and frankly, way more powerful than we've ever dealt with before. Okay, so to really get where we're headed, we gotta take a quick look back at where we've been. For a long time, alt text has basically had one job, or, well, two jobs, under a very specific old school mandate. So at its most basic, right, alt text is just that little snippet of text hidden in your website's code that describes an image. But here's the key thing, and it's right there in the definition. It's not supposed to be just a laundry list of what's in the picture. The real goal is to explain its purpose. What meaning is it trying to get across? That's the important part. And this led to what you could call the dual mandate. Basically, alt text had two different bosses it had to report to. On one hand, you've got humans. For them, it was all about accessibility, right? Making sure someone using a screen reader could understand what the image was about. Then, on the other hand, you had search engines. For them, it was a huge SEO signal, helping Google figure out the context and rank the image in searches. It was a pretty neat two-part system. The problem is, that system is now totally obsolete. Why? Well, because a brand new player just walked onto the field. And this player isn't just powerful, it's a complete game changer that has absolutely shattered the old way of doing things. I'm talking, of course, about AI. The incredible explosive rise of large language models, LLMs, and these multimodal AIs that can understand both text and images, well, it means our old two-part model just doesn't work anymore. It's incomplete. There's a third stakeholder now, a new guest at the dinner table, and we have to pay attention to it. So you might be asking, how exactly does this AI see an image? Well, it's totally different from the old search engine crawlers. Those things just scan for keywords. These new models, they look at the image and the text around it at the same time. They're not just indexing stuff, they're actually learning to reason. They're connecting the dots between what's in the picture and the words we use to describe it. So for this AI, your alt text isn't just a hint, it's like a confirmation from a human expert that says, yep, you're seeing this correctly. Okay, so this adds a whole new layer of complexity, right? Which means we need a whole new model. And that right there is the core idea we're talking about today, what we're calling the Triad Mandate.
So forget that old dual mandate. We're now dealing with a triad. It's not just about humans and old school search crawlers anymore. We've got to add multimodal AI into the mix. And the tricky part is, each one of these three has its own unique needs. Our strategy has to be sophisticated enough to satisfy all of them at the same time.
And this is where it gets really interesting. When you look at how different their needs are, let's break it down. For humans, you want something clear, almost like a little audiobook description. It's about the purpose, not just what it looks like. For a good old traditional SEO, yeah, it's still about keywords and context for ranking. But for the new AI, whoa, it's totally different. For the AI, your alt text is literally training data. It's the human-approved label that helps it learn, that confirms what it's seeing, and makes your image answerable when people use those new generative search tools. So the million-dollar question is, how on earth do you write for all three of these at once? And the answer is actually really cool. You don't have to write three different things or make some messy compromise. The key is to think of it as a synthesis. It turns out that if you just focus on writing one really great, clear, human-first description, you naturally end up giving the search engines and the AIs all the juicy, high-quality signals they're looking for. It's a win-win-win. All right, so that's the big idea, the theory behind it all. But how do you actually do this, in the real world, especially when you have hundreds or thousands of images? Let's walk through a super practical workflow that smartly blends human expertise with machine power. This visual here just lays it out perfectly. Check out that radar chart. You can see AI is just incredible at speed, scale, and doing the same thing over and over again consistently. But look where humans win, and win big. Understanding purpose, nuance, context, all those subtle emotional cues.
So the answer isn't to just hand everything over to the machines. The smartest strategy is a hybrid model, what we call a human-in-the-loop workflow, where you get the best of both worlds.
And here's how that workflow breaks down. It's actually pretty simple. Step 1, let an AI tool do the grunt work. Have it generate a first draft for all your images at scale. Then, step 2, the human touch. A real person, a content expert, an editor, comes in and refines those drafts. They add the context, the nuance, the brand voice, and make sure it actually matches the image's purpose. And finally, step 3, the magic happens. You take all those human-improved descriptions and feed them back into the AI. It learns from them, gets smarter, and the whole process gets better over time. It's a beautiful feedback loop.
So you might be thinking, okay, that sounds like some work. Why bother? Well, because the payoff is huge. And it's not just some feel-good thing. We're talking about real, measurable results. This isn't just about checking a box for compliance. This is a legitimate growth strategy.
I mean, the results really do speak for themselves. You're looking at a true win-win situation here. You're getting more organic traffic, and at the same time, you're massively lowering your legal and financial risks. Let's dig into what that actually looks like with some numbers.
First up, traffic. We're seeing that properly optimized websites can get up to a 10% higher click-through rate from image search. I mean, think about that. A 10% lift in organic traffic just from nailing your image descriptions. That is huge.
And then there's the risk side of the equation, which you absolutely cannot ignore. We're talking about hundreds, literally hundreds, of website accessibility lawsuits being filed every single year. So getting this right, it's not just nice to have. It is essential protection for your business. Okay, so to wrap this all up in a neat little bow, let's look at a super practical checklist. The most important thing to remember is that your alt text depends entirely on the image's purpose. So for a purely decorative image like a little swoosh on the page, you actually use an empty alt tag so screen readers just ignore it. But for an icon you can click on, you describe the action, like print the event schedule, not just printer icon. For a regular informational photo, you describe what's happening. And for something complex like a chart or graph, you don't describe the chart itself, you summarize the key insight, the main takeaway. And that really brings us to the final big idea to leave you with. The internet we grew up with, it used to just read our content. But the internet of today and tomorrow is starting to actually see it. This whole Triad Mandate thing, it's about so much more than just SEO or accessibility compliance. It's about future-proofing your entire content strategy for a web that is becoming more visual, way more intelligent, and hopefully more accessible for everyone. So the real question is your content ready for an internet that can see?